Eijirou's head whipped from side to side frantically. What just happened? The villain teleported us, you say numbly, still processing the drastic change of scenery. The arrival of you and Eijirou at the scene gave the kid the perfect distraction, and he'd gotten the better of you. Perhaps, if you both hadn't interfered, Katsuki would have caught him. Katsuki. You dig into your pockets, hoping that if the kid villain had dumped you both here, Katsuki was not far off. You pulled out Hatsume's pager, the sleek black device resembling a miniature phone. You tried to ping for pages in the vicinity, and breathe a sigh of relief when Katsuki's flashes red. You click a few more buttons on the pager, finding that you weren't able to contact Mustafa. Wherever this jungle was, it was out of range. Katsuki's also here, you say, as you check how far away he was from them. Shit, he's over 100 miles out, almost 200 kilometers. Eijirou leaned over you to check the pager. You tense up. You hadn't really been close to him in the past week. Which way? He asked, seeming to realize your stiffness, and moving away. East, you say shortly. The little dot moved the slightest bit forward. He saw us. He's coming this way. Eijirou nodded. Then let's meet him halfway. He began walking forward, but you interrupt his stride. You're going the wrong way. East is this way. Eijirou pouted. I knew that, he quipped hastily. You walk ahead, leaving Eijirou to follow. It made you uncomfortable, having him behind you instead of beside. The rope of tension between you and him was thick and taut and tiresome to carry, but neither of you were willing to grab the giant shears and cut it. So you ventured on in the stifling silence, allowing the rope to drag heavily between you both, as you pushed your way through the low-hanging branches with wide leaves and trekked through the soft soil clinging to your shoes. You walk for hours, with just the occasional call of a tropical bird and the humidity bearing down mercilessly. This was not boding well for them. They might dehydrate before getting to Katsuki. You checked the pager periodically to make sure that you and Eijirou stayed on course, taking comfort in Katsuki's little blinking dot. Once they regrouped, they would find a way out, fight or no fight. Wait! Eijirou shouts suddenly. You're jerked back, the pager in your hand slipping from your grasp and plummeting into a ravine that fabricated only once you'd looked up. No! You call, grabbing at air to try and save the pager, to save the map that led to Katsuki. But it was too late. You lean over the steep cliff, watching it fall, your heart plummeting with it. You rise from the floor, furious after the shock had drained, weighed down by fatigue and this impossible situation they'd found themselves in. Why did you do that? You yell mindlessly at Eijirou. That was our one tool here, the one thing we had to find Katsuki. Are you seriously asking me why I saved your life? Eijirou demanded, incredulously, then looked away. Oh wait, I forgot. I'm not allowed to do that. No, Eijirou, you growl angrily. Don't you dare turn this around on me. You didn't want me to save you. Eijirou's fists clenched and he turned away from you, stomping along the cliff's edge. Where are you going? You yell after him. I'm not going to stand here and argue with you when we need to find Katsuki, he yells back. We obviously can't cross this cliff, so we have to find a way around, unless you suddenly developed a flight quirk. Irritation flared high and ferociously inside you, and your legs refused to move. You eye the ravine, the rocky sides, tracking a pathway down and assessing the best way to proceed. You sit at the edge, lowering yourself over to place your foot on a stable enough area. Carefully, you find a handhold and descend. You're a fifth of the way down before you hear Eijirou's astounded shout. What are you doing? You meet his eyes, stubbornness burning the line of your gaze, and then you wordlessly continue down. You could fall, Eijirou says, sounding worried, and that stroked your anger further. He truly didn't trust your judgment in the least. Don't follow then, you yell without looking up. You hear frustrated, I can't believe, and then glance up to find Eijirou climbing over the edge. What are you doing? You demand, "We shouldn't be splitting up," he says, matter-of-factly. You roll your eyes and spit snarkily. "You just have to be the bigger person, don't you?" "I'm not," Eijirou huffed, cutting himself off, and quietly resumed his climb. You bite the inside of your cheek to stop yourself from spitting any more venom. What you'd said had been uncalled for. Your feet reach the bottom of the ravine safely. You search for the pager, futilely hoping that Hatsumi had made the device gravity-proof. You don't find the pager, but your eyes meet a thin river snaking down the crevice. You fall to your knees at its edge, thrusting your hand into the cooling water to throw on your face. The refreshing splash washed away all the agitation that had been plaguing you. You sigh long in relief, thanking whatever deity had placed this life-saving resource in your path. It's amazing how a scarcity of something you'd usually take for granted made you appreciate it so much more. You flick your eyes to the side, finding Eijirou kneeling in a similar state of gratefulness. Having not had the chance to change out of his hero costume, his chest was bare. You watch the streaking rivulets drag down the column of his throat, vaulting as he swallowed, and plunging deeper into his chest. The little droplets seemed to survey the generous measure of muscle collected in his upper body, before dripping down to the lower contours, and audaciously disappearing below his belt. Red eyes apprehend yours. You snap your head back to face the river, and hope you had not made your withdrawal of the man you loved too obvious. You rise to your feet swiftly, pressing forward to bury the look behind. You scan the opposing slant of the ravine. You didn't like the looks of this side compared to the other, especially the looser-looking rocks near the top. But you'd already come this far, and Katsuki was on the other side. Eijirou began before you, and you narrow your eyes, wanting to make a snide remark on how he'd wanted to go around the giant gorge that could stretch whoever knows how long. You didn't, though, decidedly saving your energy for the strenuous climb. You're concentrating on finding a good place to put your foot when you hear the sound of a shoe slipping on rock, and inhale sharply. You jerk up with panic, finding Eijirou still on the rocky surface and contemplating where to go next, considering the place he'd chosen hadn't been stable. He must feel you staring, must see the fear that your gaze held as he glances down. "I'm okay," he says, quietly with understanding. You nod, taking a small breath to calm yourself, and your racing heart. Eijirou is close to the edge now, barely more than an arm's reach up, and you're happy that you will soon be on stable ground. That is, until you hear the ominous crack of stone splitting, and Eijirou say, "Oh shit." Your wide eyes snap up, seeing the rock slyly detached from its home, watching Eijirou scramble for a new foothold. But his panic movements just made the rocks around him tumble one by one down the steep descent. You rush to meet Eijirou's level, abandoning the caution you meticulously took, because Eijirou was about to fall. You're next to him, clinging to the ledge and throwing an arm out. "Eijirou!" Eijirou sees, and he leaps, just as the rock severs completely. He grabs your hand, and you're relieved for a split second when his palm touches yours. But then, gravity yanks it away, and Eijirou with it. You tighten your grip on his hand as he drops, the force of his weight exerting itself and pulling your shoulder out of its socket. You yell out in pain, your grip loosening with the agony. "Pebble?" Eijirou shouts with worry. "Pebble, what happened? Are you okay?" You're fighting the strain on your shoulder, clinging to your little ledge and hoping you didn't crumble too. You struggle to say. "Climb!" Eijirou was quick to act, stretching his legs to the rocks and taking the strain off you. You suck in a breath at the reprieve. Though your shoulder still ached and hung limply in the open air, you no longer felt as though it would be ripped off your body. He maneuvers around you, climbing up and over the edge of the ravine. It was barely a few feet up, and yet they had not been so lucky to leave this obstacle unscathed. You try to climb on your own, without the security of an extra arm, but you stumble, slip, and your heart jumps at each wrong move. But you're not alone. Eijirou is there, reaching down and pulling you the rest of the way. You get no room to breathe as he tugs you thoughtlessly into his arms. The perfect place, your safe haven, that you hadn't had the luxury of visiting this past week. It's exactly the antidote to your racing heart, and even miraculously, dulls the pain radiating from your shoulder. You relax instantly into the hold, sighing with contentment, with ease. Eijirou was here. He hadn't fallen. His heart beat, staunchly just beyond the padded muscle that shifted with each breath. So complacent with what you'd been denied, you hadn't noticed that Eijirou had been talking, and now his rambles grew panicked as you did not answer. Pebble, please say something. I'm fine, E. You sigh. It's just my shoulder. His worried eyes flick to it, realization hitting him, and he nods with understanding. I'll pop it back. Just lie down. You allow Eijirou to lower you to the ground carefully, and take your wrist in his hand. He looks at you, tensing as you brace for pain. Here, bite on this. He offers you his unoccupied hand. You nod gratefully, allowing his forefinger between your teeth, knowing he will harden it. Eijirou extends your arm, and you try not to grimace. Ready? He asked, with concern. Just do it, you mumble around his finger. He yanks, and you yell at the horrid feeling of your bone clicking back into place. But then it's done, and you're sucking in breaths to calm yourself. Eijirou looks down at you, concern swimming in red. I'm fine, E, you say, softly, hoping to placate him. I need to bandage it, he says. Can I take this part of your costume out? He sounds hesitant, and for a moment you don't remember why. So wound up from Eijirou nearly falling to his death and the pain that followed directly after. But the way Eijirou's hands hover over your injury reminds you of the fact that you and him hadn't actually touched each other in the last week. And yet, you'd spent the first few moments after this incident taking solace in his embrace. There was no time to really dwell on this now, however. You couldn't bandage your own shoulder. You clear your throat and just said, That's fine. Eijirou carefully slips off the top half of your costume and digs into his utility belt for bandages. He wraps your shoulder carefully, soberly, a deep-set frown frozen on his face, and sadness in his focused gaze, something you couldn't stand to watch when you were unsure how your comfort would be received. He retracts his hand, inquiring with eyes fixed on your injury. Good? You nod. Though a little sore, the bandages did help. Thanks. Of course. Then Eijirou rises, and you with him. Awkwardness hangs heavy in the air. No one is sure how to proceed from the tender moment that had intercepted their anger. You puzzle for something to say, anything to fill the uncomfortable silence. I guess that makes us even for life-saving, huh? You'd half meant it as a joke, but Eijirou's eyes furrowed. What do you mean? I caught you, and you pulled me over, you answer with a shrug. Eijirou's eyes harden suddenly. It's not a competition. You pause at the hostility, meeting his stony stare. I never said it was. Yeah, but you're making it sound like it's some sort of give and take. Like if I save you, you have to pay me back. He waves his hands as he speaks. You scowl. I didn't mean it like that. But you cross your arms stubbornly. Since you seem to be so against me saving you, maybe we should be keeping track. So it's fair. Eijirou gritted his teeth. Or maybe you shouldn't have put us in danger to begin with. You spin on your heels to face him, burning with anger at the accusation. I told you not to follow me. Well, I had to, he shouts, matching your fury. Why, 'cause I can't handle myself? You don't? Eijirou cuts himself off, his livid stare unwavering, until it did. He falters and pulls back. Forget it, he says, turning away. It's gonna get dark soon. We need to find shelter. You look up, finding that he was right. The sun was finishing its race across the sky. Scaling the ravine had taken a lot more time than you thought. Wherever they were, had a different time zone to Japan. They'd been teleported in the late evening, but when they'd arrived at this unknown jungle, it must have been the late parts of the morning. Eijirou and you had just gotten off your respective patrols, and then been dropped into the situation. They should rest. Running on no food and limited energy was not a good combination. Still, you hesitate. Your eyes search the gaps between the clusters of trees. Beyond that was Katsuki. You knew Katsuki could handle himself, but it still plagued you to know that he was alone. And yet so close, if they just kept walking. You just got injured, and we've been walking for hours. We need to rest, Eijirou says, as though sensing your reluctance to stop. You bite your lip. Katsuki is still... We'll find Katsuki tomorrow, Eijirou urges. We've gone pretty far. You exhale, knowing he was right. You utter a short, fine, and pull your gaze away from the unending jungle and divert your attention to being practical. Are we gonna go searching for shelter, or should we just make a fire and sleep on the floor? Eijirou scanned his surroundings. Well, I could try to build something with some branches. That would take too long, you say, exhaustion knocking at the door now that you'd stopped moving. We should just... wait. You shout with realization and begin digging in your utility belt. What? What did you think of? Eijirou asks with surprise. You pull out the item you'd been searching for, a white rectangle. It had 2 hard plastic covers at both of its widest sides and looked as though it had folded paper stuffed inside. Hatsumi gave this to me weeks ago to test out. I completely forgot I had it in here. It's for heroes that have missions in more remote areas. You click the one button on the compressed item and throw it on the ground. The hard cover snaps open and continues to unfold, layer by layer until the off-white fabric spreads across the jungle floor. A top, Eijirou states. You lean down and point at the long dotted lines accompanied by printed letters that span the large material. Origami tent. These are the instructions on how to fold it. Even better, Eijirou toots. Here, let me... I can do it, you say stubbornly, reaching for a corner and attempting not to cringe as your shoulder twists uncomfortably. Eijirou snatches the corner away, staring at you with unwavering intensity. Rest your shoulder, he orders, sternly. You scowl at him, but knew you would lose this battle in the war. Whether it be the less than subtle ache of your shoulder or Eijirou's unyielding gaze, you decide to concede. You lean against a nearby tree and cross your arms. Go ahead, Mr. Has to do everything. Eijirou exhales through his nose, like a bull rearing, but doesn't charge the obvious red flag. Silently, he follows the instructions that Hatsumi had meticulously laid out, folding each flap and corner until a triangular prism stood waiting for them. The light is fading, and your eyes are heavy. You barely think about the fact that you'd have to spend the night sleeping next to Eijirou, something you'd painstakingly avoided as of late. Your only concern was getting off your feet and into your dreams. You'd been awake far too long. You crawl into the tent and lie down on the white floor, wishing Hatsumi had included some origami pillows and blankets. Eijirou crawls in after, flipping up the tent and then taking the other side. The both of you lay in tired quietude, staring at the slanted white roof, when Eijirou's stomach rumbles. You glance over, frowning. You were hungry, but Eijirou must be starving. It took a lot of sustenance to keep up that body. You open a compartment on your utilities belt and pull out a small protein bar. It was meant for emergencies, such as this one. A special brand that was long life and packed with proteins and carbs. You suspected that Eijirou must have eaten his at a time of weakness on patrol, and forgotten to replace it, or he would have already taken his out. You thrust the small bar to him. Here. Eijirou glances at your outstretched hand, and then back to the tent roof. You must be hungry as well. You should eat it. You glare with disbelief. How was Eijirou stubborn enough to refuse food? Are you serious? You demand with irritation. Just eat the damn thing. I'm good, he says, impassively, and turns his back to you. You blink at him incredulously, and then throw the bar at the zip door. Fine then, guess no one is having it. You whip around, pillowing your head on your arm, and fume silently. You hope sleep finds you quickly, hope for an escape from how infuriated you are. But despite the exhaustion that infected every limb and cell you possessed, sleep evaded you. It was just too uncomfortable. You didn't have your perfect pillow, the one that was just the right amount of lumpy for your head to rest. No blanket to shield from the night's chill. No cushioned surface for your aching body. And worst of all, you lacked the loving embrace from your partner, the man that was merely an arm's reach away and yet frustratingly unattainable. You curl in on yourself, fighting the temptation, assuring yourself that you did not need it. But as the minutes ticked by, one by one, the Sandman taunted you with slumber dangling on a string. You were cold, sore, and desperate for the sweet reprieve from the waking world, tearing from the dream god holding what you so perilously desired out of your reach. You hug yourself, trying to bring even a shred of warmth to challenge your distress. You're shaking with the need to keep it all in, to not alert Eijirou and give him a reason to call you weak. Arms wrap around you, and you tense, thinking Eijirou had seen you trembling and come to your aid. Despite yourself, you turn to tell him off, but find that he's asleep. You sobered, eyeing the man that you loved with a tired sigh. He'd reached for you in his sleep, and you didn't have the heart nor the willpower to push him away. In the morning, you could easily blame him for the sudden closeness, but for now, his warmth was heavenly. There was no more need for worldly comforts, not with the weight of Eijirou's lumbering arm and the blanket of his body wrapping around you. You could survive one night of yielding. As the sun rose, it shone on the thick white fabric, causing it to glow with morning light. You wake to the burn of brightness beyond your eyelids, and to pleasant languid strokes of a blunt nail along your arm. It coaxes you out of sleep tenderly, until you're blinking your eyes open to face the daylight. You melt under the touch, even as you realize who it was that dared caress you. "You're not pulling away," you say quietly. Eijirou pauses in his ministrations and mumbles, "I don't want to." And you didn't want him to. Fight or not, you loved him, like the birds that sang their praises to the season of spring, like how light danced with water to conceive the rainbow. It was why, despite the anger, Eijirou had still bandaged your injury and ensured you didn't strain it while setting up the tent. Why you had feared when he slipped on the rock wall and offered him the one bit of food you had. Why Eijirou had been drawn to you last night, and why you couldn't bear to turn him away. You sigh, shifting to face him. He appeared nervous and unsure, and you spoke to soothe him. "Katsuki's right. We let this go on way too long." He agrees easily. "Yeah." You sit up, crossing your legs and taking a deep breath. When you questioned me on the scene, it made me feel like you don't respect me as a hero, that you think that I'm incapable, and you don't trust my judgment. It hurt my feelings and my pride. Eijirou rises to sit across you, obviously anxious, but not shying away from the conversation he knew they needed to have. "I can't be a lot of things," he forces out. "My quirk is one thing, a shield. Having you feel like you needed to protect me, be my shield, it made me feel insecure, unneeded, like I couldn't protect you when that's my only job. Protecting you and Katsuki is my purpose in this relationship." "Oh, you soften, and tentatively place your hand on his cheek, the first conscious touch they'd shared in days. Eijirou leaned into it readily, and that assures you that it was wanted. "We'll always need you, for more than being a shield. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I'm sorry. But just as you feel like you need to protect me, us, I feel the same. I'll always want to protect you and Katsuki. But that doesn't mean I think less of you. It's just because I love you." Eijirou took a shaky breath and nodded. I know, I'm sorry too. You're an extremely capable hero, and I shouldn't have let my insecurities interfere with hero work. And create such a big fight over it. Your lips stretch into a smile at the admission. You lean forward, finally giving in to the visceral need to be close to him, and press your forehead to his. Is this solved? Cause I don't think either of us will survive on our own cooking skills. We'll starve. Eijirou laughed wetly, his eyes glimmering with affection. Yeah, he sniffs. I missed you, Pebble. He presses his lips to yours, soft, tender, as though it was their first. You reciprocate, just as delicate and gentle. I missed you too, you mumble into his lips, drifting into him, craving his touch after denying yourself for so long. Oi! Are you two done in there? Been waiting here since dawn for you fuckers to wake up. You and Eijirou jolt in tandem. Katsuki? You shout excitedly. You move instantly to unzip the tent, but pause. The zipper almost looked glued together, or, oh shit, wait, I fused the zipper, Katsuki said, rustling outside. What? Why? Eijirou asked, puzzled. I wasn't sure whether you idiots were still going to be fighting. And your solution was to trap us in one of Hatsumi's inventions, you demand? The zipper glows red before the flap is ripped apart. Your blonde boyfriend, framed in blinding daylight, rolls his eyes. We all know that if Hatsumi's inventions don't blow up in the first 24 hours, they're safe. You tackle him in a hug, ecstatic to see him safe and unharmed, though slightly disheveled, as one is when marching through the wild. How did you get to us so quickly? Been fucking walking through the night, Katsuki grumbled as you move aside, for Eijirou to engulf him in his own hug. And then I found this idiot. Katsuki holds up his hand where silver circles it. You follow the line of metal, finding the villain kid attached to the other handcuff. Whoa, how did you catch him? Eijirou asked in awe. Katsuki smirks. I caught the idiot stashing his contraband not far from here, and managed to cuff him. Now he can't teleport without me. Pretty fucking dumb of him to teleport us to the same place he keeps his shit. And lucky for us, you mention. Katsuki clicks his tongue. Lucky would have been not having to come to this godforsaken place to begin with its stupid fucking mosquitoes and shit. I'm ready to get the fuck out. So Katsuki, are you going to cook for us now? You ask cheerfully as the three of you tread up the steps of your home. The villain kid had been dealt with. They'd given their quick reports into the agency and were more than ready to crash in their bed and possibly wake up in the next week. No, Katsuki says shortly, finally, as he heads directly into their bedroom and undresses. Why? Eijirou whines. We made up. Yeah, after getting us fucking teleported into a fucking jungle. Katsuki snaps. Fuck off and starve. Oh, Katsuki, please, you plead, forcing your wide, contrite eyes in his view. He flinches his head away, only to be met by Eijirou's pleading pout. We're really sorry, he enforces. Katsuki groans and collapses onto the bed, face first. You're both impossible. Maybe tomorrow. Or the next day. I'm still pissed. That placates you and Eijirou. The bed called to you too, and you lie down on either side of him, beyond grateful for your mattress. No, Katsuki growls. I am sick of the middle. Fucking move. Katsuki yanks you forward, moving over you to get to the end of the bed. I keep getting hit by your large arms, Eijirou, and you toss and turn like there's ants in the bed. Katsuki whips his back to you, puffing with annoyance. Eijirou envelops you easily, and you dissolve, your limbs liquefying into the mold of his arms. Let's not fight again, Eijirou exhales. And though you know that may be impossible, that there will always be arguments and controversy, you hum in agreement. Will you both shut up? I'm trying to sleep, Katsuki snarls. You and Eijirou giggle, and you place your hand on Katsuki's back, a little touch to not annoy him further. The future may hold many more fights, many more silences, but you believed that the three of you would always find a way to figure it out. Especially with the threat of Katsuki starving them looming over.